Just 2 days after being named host of the Academy Awards, Kevin Hart has stepped down following an outcry over past tweets by the comedian that are being described as homophobic. The tweets mostly dated from 2009 to 2011 and have since been deleted. One had to do with Hart not wanting his son to play with his daughter's dollhouse. Hart apologized for his, quote, insensitive words from his past. Joining me now by Skype from Los Angeles is Michael Knowles of the Daily Wire and the host of The Michael Knowles Show. So, Michael, Kevin Hart says he has evolved and changed his views, but he still receives a lot of backlash for his comment. Hollywood stars who often, as you know, voice unpopular and sometimes conservative viewpoints are regularly ostracized. What do you make of all the pressure that's put on entertainers when it comes to these kinds of issues?
Well, I think I know every single conservative Hollywood person. There aren't that many of us out here, and that's certainly the case. But in the case of Kevin Hart, it's not as though he's some rock-ribbed Republican. He's a comedian who made a joke about gay people. Can you find me one comedian on earth who hasn't made a joke about gay people 10 years ago? The comments came. It's not as though he were making some political speech. He told a joke, which is his job. He did it in 2009. He's actually since apologized for it and says he wouldn't tell the joke anymore, in large part because the audiences have changed so much. This gives a lot of credence to what the playwright William Inge said when he said that whoever marries himself to the spirit of the age will find himself a widower in the next. The left is constantly becoming so offended. They are constantly moving the goalposts on what is acceptable even to joke about, that at this point, what we like to do on social media as a culture is find one person who is having any bit of success and then tear him to the ground. There is a mobbing that happens, and one of the lessons from this is that you never can apologize. We saw this from the Me Too movement. All of the people accused of deviant sexual acts who apologized for it were destroyed. The ones who denied it basically were allowed to continue. Same thing here with Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart says, I am repentant. I am sorry. I didn't mean to do that. He said that years ago. They won't take sorry for an answer. So now you have this awful incentive where people who truly are sorry for something, who have changed their mind on something, now have no incentive to change their views or to evolve their views. It's really sad, and heaven help the next person who's offered this job, because our culture is so angry and the left is so unable to have a sense of humor or to laugh these days that we're in a culture where I'm sure they're going to tear down the next selection as well.
Okay, so that's obviously one big talking point. Another talker this week came out of President George H.W. Bush's funeral. It appears as if President Trump did not read out loud the Apostles' Creed along with the rest of the congregation. Criticism immediately popped up on social media. Obviously, President Trump is subject to criticism of all types, but do you think that particular is fair?
You know, if he had read the Apostles' Creed, they would be attacking him for not reading it in Latin, credo in unum Deum, and if he had done that, they would have criticized him for not chanting it. I actually was rather pleased with President Trump in so much as he's being honest. This is a man who has been quite open about being relatively post-Christian in his political views. He was steeped in the religious views of Norman Vincent Peale, the power of positive thinking, and so he doesn't give a performance of something if he isn't constantly attending church services on Sundays or whatever. Meanwhile, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama are reciting the Apostles' Creed. Do we really believe that these are devout, practicing Christians who take that faith seriously? I think there is, as Rochefoucauld said, hypocrisy is the tribute that vice pays to virtue. That's fine, but I found President Trump's demurring from that to actually show a bit of humility. The nice thing about Donald Trump is what you see is what you get. He's been wonderful for Christians. He's been wonderful for life and for the unborn. He's been wonderful for religious liberty. He doesn't recite the Apostles' Creed. Would that we had Pope Innocent III come back and serve as president, but we don't, and I simply can't attack him for that, especially when probably he's just being honest.
You mentioned the pro-life issue, and before we go, earlier in the show, we heard from Jeannie Mancini, the president of the March for Life. Ben Shapiro, who you work with at the Daily Wire, will be speaking at that event in January. Ben, you have been very vocal about your pro-life views. Tell us what kind of reaction for this engagement.
Ben is very excited. I myself have two reactions, which is excitement for the speech and envy, because it's one of the greatest opportunities for the cultural conservatives and people who really care about the unborn and the pro-life cause in this country. The pro-life movement has grown year over year. The March for Life has grown year over year. We've seen now the major administration figures come and address the pro-life movement. And Ben, I can speak to this. I see him every single day. Ben speaks to such a young audience and such a broad audience. He has the biggest podcast on the right. He attracts people from the center and from the left. He's really speaking to a broad swath of people and to virtually everybody under the age of 40. I think it was a brilliant move for the March for Life to bring him there. I hope that I can make it out to watch it, and I know he's going to do a great job. I know he doesn't like to travel so much because his schedule is so busy, but he wouldn't miss it. It's such a wonderful opportunity for our culture.
I'm sure a lot of young people will be energized to see him. Michael Knowles of the Daily Wire and host of the Michael Knowles Show, thanks so much for talking with us.
Good to see you, Wyatt.